I apologize for the gap between the last character analysis episode and this one. A lot of stuff's been happening these past few weeks for me. I went on a vacation, my buddy Gavin is getting married and I'm one of his groomsmen, my sister got engaged, I've been taking family members to doctor's appointments, and I've been playing a lot of Yakuza 2. Now, that last one might not seem as valid as all the others, but in Yakuza, you can do this. So yeah, I was doing a lot of important things. I love GILFs. Seeing a grandpa out kicking ass and taking names is one of those tropes that rarely misses for me. And thankfully, the JRPG genre is the most oldie-friendly genre there is, outside of maybe fighting games. Fire Emblem has been doing this from the start, with the likes of Jagan or Mycen, but today, I want to highlight my favorite senior citizen in the entire series, Duessel from Fire Emblem Sacred Stones. So sit down and experience the great General of Grotto, the man given the title Obsidian, which means you know he's cool because Obsidian is in like the top 3 coolest rocks. To lay down some background, Duessel is one of the generals of Sacred Stone's resident big bad evil empire, Grotto. He has a few scenes early on where he's talking to his fellow generals about how wrong their actions have been, with his fellow general Glenn agreeing, while Selena takes a more we aren't paid to think approach, but shares the idea that something has to be done in the land they've invaded, Renee. These scenes help show that all 3 of the Grotto generals are good people at heart. For Glenn and Selena, this is to add to the tragedy of their inevitable demise. For Duessel, though, it keeps him in the player's mind as one of the good ones. It's hard to forget the cool-looking old man who's constantly trying to do the right thing. Duessel's big plot scene comes when he's ordered to kill Ephraim, the Prince of Renee and the man who used to be Duessel's student. Duessel starts to beg and plead with his emperor, trying in vain to get him to stop his mad conquest. This scene does a great job at selling Duessel's desperation. Vigard's refusal to listen is just a dagger to the heart. It's good at taking a done-before idea and doing something different with it. It's very comparable to Hannibal telling off Trovant in FE4, but the tone is completely different. While with Hannibal, it was righteous fury in our introduction to Hannibal's character, this is much more depressing and sympathetic. You don't feel anger, you just feel sorrow that Duessel just cannot break through to Vigard's skull. And this segues into Duessel's recruitment, which I think is handled very well too. Duessel's outburst causes the Emperor to doubt his loyalties, so he's tailed on his mission to fight Ephraim. And when Duessel tries to do the absolutely heretical tactic of talking calmly about the problems, he's branded a traitor and forced to fight against his own kingdom. And in this depressed state where he feels as though he no longer has a reason to go on, Ephraim comes over to convince him that he's doing the right thing and he will live for a better purpose. It's very easy to sympathize with Duessel, seeing him start out as having doubts and then watching those doubts boil over into this entire mess is very easy to understand and get along with. It's built up very well when you finally recruit him. It's like when you recruit Nino and Jafar in FE7, or Galzus in FE5. There's a certain sense of, finally we got him, that makes getting him incredibly satisfying. Before we get into his supports, I want to take a brief aside to talk about his unit quality, because it is bonkers. His base stats alone make him usable for the entire game, even if he never gets a single level up, and he comes in at Chapter 10 earlier than halfway through. He has complete command of the weapon triangle, sporting a perfect AAA in swords, axes, and lances. He's one of those units that goes on your army right away and never leaves it. Sacred Stones is already an easy game, but giving you an old warhorse like Duessel makes it even easier. And that good unit performance leaves an impression on players. You ever get a unit like Wallace, who's built up in the story as someone powerful, but then they're not that good? Duessel is the opposite. He's built up as a beast, and he is a beast, and that kind of gameplay story connection just feels good to see. On to his supports. Duessel has 4 support chains, all with his fellow people of Grotto. The Wyvern Rider Cormag, the young aspiring knight Amelia, the depressed shaman Noel, and the beautiful cleric Ephraim. Speaking of that last one, it's the first one I want to go over, as it's a chain about Ephraim when he was young and impulsive. I guess more young and impulsive. It's about how Ephraim challenged Duessel when they first met, and Ephraim got his ass handed to him. It's funny to know that Ephraim's always been like he is, but for Duessel, it also has him talking about the decision to betray his kingdom, and how it makes him feel a sense of regret. Which seems odd that he would regret leaving the empire that was destroying the entire continent, but that's just me. Jokes aside, it is actually something I really like about Duessel. He isn't just a red dude who turns blue, who never has any feelings about it ever again. Him having these doubts, while still acknowledging he made the right call, helps him feel very human. Because I don't think it's uncommon to look back at a time in your life and wonder if you're better off now that it's past. It could be something like an old job, an old relationship, that even if you're objectively better without it, you can still stop and go, Duessel's inner thoughts here help humanize him in a relatable way, and the support also does wonders for Ephraim's character. But this isn't his episode, so we're gonna be seeing the last of him. Duessel's support with Cormag starts with Duessel concerned over the young man's heart, worried he might be plagued with regrets similar to himself, but Cormag is mentally stable, at least in that regard, so the support kinda just drops that to talk about something else. Duessel is in charge of some magical cursed lance somehow. It's honestly not really explained why or how his family's guarding it, it's kinda just their Sisyphusian task in life, I guess. But apparently, whoever uses it is driven to madness. And Volter, the lovable rat bastard of Fire Emblem 8, with all kinds of crimes under his belt, accidentally fought with the lance, and Duessel believes that's why Volter is the way that he is. Duessel blames himself for the evil he accidentally unleashed. I'm gonna be honest, I think this support is kinda dumb. Cormag immediately takes the lance and says that a lance is only as evil as its wielder. So what was even the point of all this? I mean, things have been introduced to be useless before. Power levels in Dragon Ball Z are completely made to be useless, but those are used to show the incompetence of the villains. What do we really learn from the Cursed Lance? That Volter was always kinda fucked up? I don't think that was something we needed to know. I mean, you can read any one of his many lines about him trying to sexually assault Erika to realize he's not a good person. Is it not for Volter or Duessel, but for Cormag, to show that he's stronger of heart than Volter? Again, I think we could already gather that easily. I don't know, this support is not one of my favorites. Cormag, Volter, and Duessel individually are all great characters, but I personally think this support is just a nothing burger. Feel free to tell me in the comments if you think there's something I'm missing here. I'd love to get a different perspective on this. Don't worry, even if that support didn't do it for me, the good news is that his next 2 supports are honestly some of my favorites in the entire franchise. His Amelia support starts with a very cute relationship. Amelia is a young soldier who idolizes Duessel, given how he's kind of like the Knight of Grotto. And they take on a nice mentor-student relationship, with Amelia buttering him up with her earnest personality, and Duessel responding with sage advice and humoring her praise of him. But all the while, Duessel feels as though he knows Amelia from somewhere, or at the very least, he recognizes her face. It starts completely unassuming, but once the A support gets going, and Duessel remembers where he recognizes Amelia from, it gets really emotional really fast. See, Amelia thought she was an orphan. Not a bad assumption to make, given the series that she's in, but Duessel tells her a story about a woman he and some knights saved. She was taken away from her home by bandits, and the trauma of the event left her without her memories. It was only after she was relocated to a peaceful village for several years that she remembered that she had a daughter. And though Duessel tried his hardest to look for her, he thought the search to be hopeless. But by sheer dumb luck, he happened to run into that long-lost daughter, Amelia. When she learns this, Amelia breaks down and cries, unable to form a sentence other than thank you, and even Duessel can't hold back his tears in the moment. This is a very sweet story for sure, but I want to talk about how it highlights two things about the FE support system really well. The first thing it highlights is something that supports do really well, and it's something I've only come to realize after doing about 80 episodes of character analysis videos. Fire Emblem supports are really good at making me a lot of money. That's right, I have a Patreon, where for as little as $3 a month, you can get access to benefits on the channel, like getting your name read aloud on videos, and getting to vote on polls for future episodes. Right now, the poll is a battle of Thracia characters, and Lenoan has a slim lead over Galzus, but with your vote, that could change. Head on over to patreon.com/FEMSpaint, link in the description, to make your voice heard. My patrons include the likes of Adebayo Thompson, Andrew Crockett, Bean Juice, Benz Again, Dr. McBackstab, Fire Emblem Lord, Great Riek, Hell on Heelys, Ichigo D. Camus, Jaeger Guts, Kenpachi Shiro, Uzumaki Kira, Mato Kratos, Char Anzel, Frederick Sears, Pulsara Hakuman, The White Void, Justpacito 2, Lysevening Bolt, Marth the Valiant War Criminal, Morga Lorgan, Nevrix the Tourmaline Project Creator, Shenlu, Steph D, Tato, The Fool, the world's most unironic 8.5 tail stan, Walmart Greeter, Your Girl Olwyn, Brentendo11, Drew Hack, Ginger, Gugu Gaga, Cornelia Milkers 92, Plaid Arrow, and Upscale Furry Trash. Now after hearing that, aren't the Fire Emblem support systems great? Okay, so the actual first thing I want to talk about is how Duessel and Amelia's support, by design, keeps the player engaged with a mystery to keep them coming back for more conversations. The C support dangles Duessel recognizing Amelia's face at the start, leaving a plot thread open to encourage the player to read the B support. Then in the B support, it ends with Duessel remembering why he recognizes her, and the urgency in his dialogue makes you really want to know why, and then the A support pays off that investment with a heartwarming story. FE supports, in the nature of being disconnected from CBA, lead themselves well to little to-be-continued plot points, and by their nature, a lot of good supports use that fact to kind of create a 3-act structure. And this support is a great example in showing how Fire Emblem does its writing really well. Another thing the support highlights is when Fire Emblem makes seemingly innocuous supports into something incredibly character-defining. Who would have thought Amelia's support with Duessel would completely reshape her entire backstory? Who would have thought that Marissa's support with Calm would delve into her inferiority complex with her father and how that influences her everyday life? Who would have thought that Tyronio's support with Rolf would be about his separation from his wife and his estrangement with his son? It's the kind of thing that makes a player think any support could have something incredible in it, and therefore, it makes a player want to try to see them all, looking for that nugget of gold. It is a bit of a double-edged sword, because you're running the risk of people just never seeing a character's major moment, but I think it's smart for FE to do it this way, and I think this support highlights the advantages of it. His last support with Noel is a fantastic world-building support. It goes into the game's main villain Leon and the motivations for what he does. It's great for shining some light on Leon and Noel's backstory, and it has a good scene for Duessel at the end. Noel is remarking that he feels it's better if he should die, that he's lost the drive that once moved him. And Duessel's response is a good one. So good that I want to show it word for word, because I managed to make it through the whole analysis without letting the game do the script work for me, and I deserve a little treat. And now Prince Leon is no more. I've lost everything. I have also lost everything. And we have both lost our ways. We are dead men who have stayed too long away from our graves. But remember, Noel, you cannot see the future, but you can look back at your past. Look and learn. What gave you your life meaning, and what has taken meaning from you now? If you still hold the convictions that guided you in Grotto, you can start anew. That is what I must do. We may be diminished by our shame, but we are not dead yet, my friend. Like a lot of Fire Emblem moments, it's not breaking any new ground in the lesson being told, to live for the sake of living and to find what drives you, yada yada yada. But I think Duessel saying this to Noel is significant on both ends of the spectrum. On Duessel's end, he's an old-ass man. He's like 60-something, and is still willing to look for a new purpose in life. And that can speak to people who feel like they've already run out of time to figure out their lives at the ripe old age of 23. And Noel is partly responsible for unleashing Satan into the world. So telling a guy that's fucked up that badly that you can move on from your mistakes is also a very strong statement. It's a solid moment of Duessel being a teacher less in the ways of war and more in ways of the soul. I think it's a very good scene. Duessel really does a lot right. He has a solid story presence, a solid recruitment, and a solid set of supports. He's not always the centerpiece of his supports, but his presence brings out the best in the characters around him and makes them more engaging. Combine that with a fantastic unit presence, and you have yourself one of the best Fire Emblem has to offer on the Game Boy Advance. He's one of the best old men in a series that has one of the best lineups of old men in the JRPG medium. And that's a lot of cool old dudes to beat out. I would like to thank you all for making it to the end of another character analysis video. I am very sorry this one took so long to come out. I'm going to try to speed through the next one. I promise you, more will come. Things just happened. They were a lot. As always, I'd like to thank my buddy Guy for looking over the script, making sure nothing I'm saying is too crazy, and in general just being a cool guy. Thank you very much for your support. As always, buddy, love ya. And so, if you enjoyed the video, consider joining my Discord server. I am asking people to advertise it. Snyder immediately posted Sigurd Among Us. G-Guy is saying I'm talking about batteries. Now they're doing rocks. Geodudu, which is really just another rock. Joe put whatever the hell that is. Now they're talking about meth. Alright, this is not your strongest showing. Yo, you're playing Sonic Adventure DX? Never mind, this is your greatest showing. Thankfully, I asked them to shill it again, because I have no originality. Well, in that case, Ace Donut, Esteban is threatening you with a... I think that's a Goblin Slayer profile pic? I'm pretty threatened about that. Snyder wants to eat Faye? Alright, not your strongest showing. And now we have AI low-tier God. Pick up the pace, guys. Join the Discord to make better jokes. I love you all. Thank you very much for always commenting when I ask you to. You're all great. Until next time.
Change the world. My final message. Goodbye.